One day you'll meet somebody, you'll see them, and you'll be like, oh, that's me. And you get to be that kid's hero. You got to keep going, channel this, get it out into something, don't stop now. If you're going through hell, why would you stop there? Get to the other side, because on the other side, somebody is waiting for you, and don't do it alone. Get it out.
Welcome to Attitude of Altitude podcast, presented by Planet of One. We're sharing stories and conversations, encouraging and empowering listeners to be bold, take action, and be your best self, so we may be the change we desire to see in this world. Know that your attitude determines your altitude in life. Welcome to the podcast. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to Attitude of Altitude. I am super grateful to have Robb Nash with us today. And just off the bat, he is wearing his best cologne for you guys. So come on in.
Yep. I did that just for you guys.
Thank you, Robb. Robb is an award-winning musician that walked away from a record deal for something that is different and greater, possibly. He walked away to play in schools, to play in juvenile halls, in Indian reserves, and a variety of places, all impacting mental health. And I'm not going to tell you guys much more because we're going to let Robb really share a lot of his story. So, Robb, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate you.
I just, if you could have just let me come see you in person, I'm in Canada. To come to California, you could have just said, hey, come visit me here. We're all about going south. And strangely enough, my mom, born and raised in Mexico, my dad's from Belize, and they wanted us to learn English. So we went from the tropics of Belize to the tropics of Manitoba. And I'm like, Canada, Manitoba? Like, come on, there's warmer places than this.
That's incredible. I didn't know that about you.
Yeah.
So that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Let the audience know a little bit about you and your story. And the way I connected with Robb is I found one of his videos on YouTube and was so impressed with what he's doing with mental health. He's won multiple awards in Canada, even from the Governor General. I couldn't even list them all, you guys. That would take more than an hour. So tell us your background and how you even got started in this.
Yeah, well, most of the time musicians, I want to be musician since I was 4. That wasn't the case for me. Music was actually my worst mark in school. I auditioned for the choir. I didn't make it. My voice wasn't good enough. But for me, it wasn't about like what I do or what I wanted to do when I grew up. It became more about why. For me, I'm 6'5". I played a lot of sports, and I was a teenager. And you think you got your whole life ahead of you. You don't take life all that seriously. And then one day on our icy roads up in Canada during winter, my friends and I were going way too fast on an icy road, and we got hit by a semi truck. I was actually found. The first person closest that drove by was a first responder, and he resuscitated me. I had no pulse, not breathing, and they called my family. They're all coming to the hospital expecting potentially the worst. They got me to the hospital, and they had to rebuild my skull with titanium because I had crushed my skull. Lots of surgeries that I've been having. This is metal right here as well. But when I woke up, I didn't know who I was or my parents, and the memories started coming back, but I'm missing about 2 to 3 months of memory. And I went from a 6'5" guy that played a lot of sports to a 6'5" guy getting bathed by his mom. And so a lot of people would ask me like, hey, like, how's your skull pain? How's your shoulder? And nobody was asking the important question. And that was like, what's going on inside of that skull? Because, the physical recovery, that's one thing, but what happens to you emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, that was the tougher part for me. And because people would throw all these cliches at me. Some family told me that it was fate, and I didn't like that. Like I have no choice, right? Someone in my family told me that God spanked me with a semi because I was a bad kid, and didn't like that. But the most common thing people would say to me, and they still say to this day, and people say this with great intentions, but I think it does more damage than good, is people would always say that everything happens for a reason. And I was like, everything happens for a reason. I'm like, well, what's the reason this happened to me? And that brought me to a really dark place. And so I thought, if there's some big reason, and this is how life is, like you just learn life lessons by getting hit by a semi truck or struck by lightning. I didn't want to be alive. So for over 2 years, I was suicidal. Nobody knew. Like, I just put on a mask. My friends, my family, nobody did anything wrong, but I just didn't tell anyone. And then after about 2 years, somebody walked up and he was like, "You're trying to figure out the reason this happened to you, aren't you?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he goes, "I know what it is." It's like, "What is it?" And he goes, "You were going too fast. You got hit by a semi truck because you guys were going too fast on an icy road. Shit happens. What are you going to do with it?" And that sounds simple, but that set me free. I didn't have to be mad at fate or God or anything. I'm just like, we're not puppets. We get to make our own decisions. What am I going to do with this? And then I realized, and what I say in concerts all the time is like, look, I've seen some wonderful things happen that are divine. It's just beyond coincidence. But to say everything happens for a reason is pretty tough. So I say bad things don't happen for a reason. Bad things happen with potential. My accident had the potential to leave me angry, bitter, suicidal the rest of my life. But there's also the potential, you could take your story and do something with it. And tragedy can tear apart a person. It can tear apart an individual, a family, a community, an entire country, or a world, as you've seen in the last 2 years. But tragedy can also bring people together. So I decided, after he said that to me, I'm like, "Okay, I'm done being angry." I screamed at the sky and I was like, "I want to do something today. Like, I want to do something that matters. Like, I want my life to count. Not everybody get a second chance, right?" And I thought I'd hear a voice telling me to like move to Africa and build a well or something, and I would have done it. But the first, you get those promptings in your gut. First thing I felt was phone the semi driver that hit you and tell him you're alive. And yeah, I took a little while because I'm phoning the police, and I was like, "Hey, can I get the phone over the semi truck driver that ran me over?" And the cops were like, "No." And I kept trying though, and finally one cop gave me his number, and it was a trucker from the States. And I got a hold of him, and I said, "Hey, is this so and so?" And he goes, "Yeah." And I said, "You remember that accident up in Canada?" And he got really quiet, and he goes, "Yeah." And I said, "Just wanted to tell you I'm okay. Like, I made it. I'm alive. I survived." And I could tell that really did something to him. Like, it set him free, even though the accident was my friend's fault. It wasn't his fault. But well, the important part of that story isn't what happened to him. It's what happened to me. I realized that day that I didn't have to, like, if you get prompted to go to do a missions trip and go build a well somewhere, that's great. But you can do something significant just by making a phone call. And we make what life way too complex. And I was like, it just changed me, and it became an addiction. And I was like, man, I want to tell my story so other people don't have to like die like I did before they start to live. So I'm like, how can I tell a story? And I'm like, music's a good way to tell a story. Started a band. We did our first couple albums, and I was wondering, like, where's the crowd? There was only 4 people in the audience, right? And now I listen to that first album, I'm like, yeah, it's a good thing there was only 4 people in the audience, because we had to get a little better, but we got a record deal and we had some top 10 hits on the radio here in Canada. And yeah, like you mentioned, I had the chance to do what was supposed to be a 9-month tour, going through some schools, telling my story. And I walked away from my record deal to do that, refinanced my home, didn't have a penny from having a record deal or songs on the radio. I just owed some money, but I walked away and did that 9-month tour. That's where it started, and it was the best decision I've ever made.
How easy was that decision for you? Because a lot of people that come to those spots where they're possibly making an income, they're doing something, and something tugs at them that is more important. How did you make that decision, Rob?
Well, I think maybe, like, I wasn't a risk taker before my accident. Like, they actually warned my family. They said, if he wakes up, he'll be aggressive now. He could be vulgar, and he'll probably be a risk taker. Like, it's part of what happens with, an injury like that. But so I was just, after that, like, I wasn't a dreamer before, but now I was like, I was willing to push through, through all the tough days. But I found, like, as we were touring with some of the bands that I really looked up to, and we're playing to these huge crowds, and it was amazing. And I'm meeting some of these guys backstage, and you think they're going to be so fulfilled because they're so successful. They got everything that you think you want. And often they were so empty. And that's when I realized, like, if you stop at success, um, you're just not going to feel fulfilled. And you have to, there's a great book, it's called From Success to Significance. And so it just it talks about the fact that if you move from success to significance, that's when you have impact on the world around you. And that's what's actually fulfilling. So was it challenging at times trying to figure it out? Because I couldn't take donations. I didn't have a charity yet and stuff. I just did it. And but it, yeah, I just knew it wasn't watching some of these other bands that I needed to do something bigger and more. And again, I didn't play music because I wanted to be a rock star. I legitimately wanted to tell stories. So, yeah, the first little while was tough, but after a while, I was like, I wonder how we're gonna, because it's all been free. We've never charged anything for whatever we've done, and just to see it happen. After a while, I was just like, I wonder what's gonna happen next month. Well, like the shows got bigger, and it turned from 9 months. It was just me and a guitar in the beginning, and then it started growing. And I brought a guitarist back with me, 2 acoustic guitars, and then a drummer. And then we couldn't meet the demand, so we started bringing schools together. So the last 5 years before COVID, we were back in big theaters and arenas, and we'd pay for all the school buses and the gas, and we'd fly in kids from northern reserves, and we'd put on these, and it was cost a ton, but we got our charitable status, and we had a fundraising team, and it was just remarkable to see. And we had so many amazing things happen. Like, we had a couple that we had never met before. They bought me a tour bus. They flew our crew to Nashville, Tennessee, and bought a bus from Hemphill, a Prevost with like 15 flat screen TVs inside. And they're like, keep going, don't stop. And a trucking company, Bison Transport in Manitoba, where I live, they're like, hey, we're a trucking company. We'll pay for the gas in your bus to keep it going. It's been so amazing. Nash Guitars, as you see them all around, they're in Washington. They make amazing guitars, and they send them out to me, and like, just so many amazing people step up to be like, we want to help you do what you do, because they could see that so many people are seeing their community, their families struggling with their mental illness. And it's especially in the last couple of years, this is, when I had my accident, I was in high school, and suddenly I was isolated, and I couldn't play sports with my friends, and I was alone. So when COVID hit, I was like, I know what that did to me, being in isolation. I know what that did to me, not being able to be with friends and play sports. And I'm like, oh, this is not going to be good. And yeah, I don't think we're going to know the long-term effects, but we've been just flooded with people begging for help from communities all around Canada.
Rob, what's it like when you actually do a concert? Take us through that process of what does it feel like for you and the impact that you see in the audience? Because some people may not even understand what your concerts are all about.
Yeah, well, first of all, it's normally people buy a ticket to your concert, so they like your music, they're a fan of yours. This is different. It's there's people in the audience that like, hip hop and rap and country music, and we're not any of those. We're rock, so they haven't even bought a ticket. So they're not necessarily fans of yours or even your genre of music. They're brought there, and they're expecting a school presentation. And I hated presentations when I was in schools, somebody going, don't do drugs, So we get up on stage, and first of all, kids come in, and there's massive lights and LED walls, and they see drums and guitars, and like, oh, this is different, And then I come up, and I'm not gonna lie, I before I got a record deal, I was a radio DJ, so I do a lot of impressions. So I'll do like Family Guy voices, and half of the stuff is comedy that I'm doing, and then it's just me in the beginning sitting on a stool, and I tell my story for 5-10 minutes, and like introduce the band. They come out, we play a song about my story. And then I'll start talking about, hey, we went to this community and we met this person. And then I'll be like, it'd be, let's say, a kid that we met in lockdown, for example, one girl, and she had an eating disorder, and she, a suicide attempt, and the crowd's like, and then I'm like, do you want to meet her? And then we bring her on stage, and she'll perform with us, and they'll be like, whoa. And so we just stories and music, and you're just watching this unfold. And behind us on the LED walls, as we're performing, you see the music videos, and so you see these stories. And you know, I think way too often in the media, like when we talk about mental illness, we only talk about the suicides. When we talk about addiction, we only talk about the overdoses. And yeah, we can learn from tragedy, but you got to balance those with stories of victory and triumph. So, there's one song we have called Thief of Colors. And while we're performing it, there's a montage on the back wall of young people just ripping up their suicide notes that have sent us their clips on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube. And kids go like, okay, not every story of mental illness ends in a suicide. I want to be like that girl and rip up my note. And so we just try to feed them hope, which is step one.
How many people to this date do you think have turned in their suicide notes?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you this, Rima. The first time, like when I started doing the tour, I didn't really talk about the fact that I had been suicidal. My show was more about, hey, I had this big car accident and make every day count because you're not promised tomorrow, right? Who knows what could happen? But then one day we were called to a school outside of Toronto, and they lost a girl to suicide, and they said, Rob, can you come right away? We've heard about your effectiveness. And on this girl's note, it was revealed that she had a deal with one of her friends, like, if you kill yourself, I'll kill myself. And they said, we don't know who it is. So we went there, and there's 1,000 kids in front of me. And I'm thinking, somebody in this room is about to take their life. I don't know where they're sitting, but I felt this in my gut. I'm like, I need to say that I was there once myself. I'd never said this before, not even to my own team. No one knew. And I was scared because I'm like, oh, what is my team going to think of me? What are the staff going to think of me? The students, like if I reveal this weakness that I had, And I got to this point of the show, and I was just like, I know somebody in this room is thinking about taking your life. Ah, you're not alone. I was there once too. And I braced for the impact, but it felt like 1,000 pounds off me. And I was like, oh, I actually felt really good. And then this girl came up, and she, some people are just wanting autographs and a selfie, but this girl comes up and she hands me this old note. It was all, folded up, and she hands it to me, and I'm like, what is this? She said, it's my suicide note. She goes, I was going to kill myself this weekend. She goes, here, I don't need this anymore. And the school counselor and the principal were beside me, and they walked off with her. And that's why they brought us there. Could we find her? Right. And I was like, so confused. And I spoke with a police officer that deals a lot with teenage mental illness and suicides. And I said, why did she have the note on her? Like, she didn't write that while she was sitting in the audience. And the officer said, yeah, rarely when we come on scene is the note freshly written. People usually write it a few months before they take their life, and they carry it with them, waiting for somebody to either push them over the edge or for somebody to reach out and say something that lets them know they're not alone, that there's some hope out there. So then it was like the next day we're in front of another 1,000, 2,000, I don't know how many students. And I was like, well, if the stats are true from Kids Help Phone in Canada, pre-COVID, 1 in 5 teenagers had seriously considered suicide in the last 12 months. 1 in 5. So I'm like, well, if those stats are real and there's, let's say, 1,000 people in front of me, 1 in 5, somebody here is thinking about it too. So I said it the second day, and I was like, it was a little easier this time. Like, I was there once too. And then a young man gave me his note, and yeah, 917 students over 10 years on tour handed me their suicide notes and got help. And yeah, that's not including all the ones that, again, sent us videos of ripping them up and burning them and stuff. And a lot of them would tattoo the lyrics of our songs on their arms where they used to cut, and so it just brought me to tears. And I was like, how is my life, my story, that much of a part of somebody's life like that they tattooed on their arm? And I was like, how do I show that same love and attachment to who I am? So I took the signatures and the names from all the suicide notes, and I tattooed them on my arms. And because I just wanted people to know, like, hey, you're that much part of who I am too. And I want to be able to see, like, if I meet somebody, it's like, hey, like, what are those names? And I'd tell them, like, hey, this is somebody that had those same thoughts just like you, and they're still here, and Yeah, we were playing. I played. I know hockey's not huge in California, but it's pretty big in Canada. And I played the national anthem at a hockey game. And afterwards, this woman selling 50-50 tickets, she just walks up. She goes, "Can I see your arm?" I was like, "Yeah." So I showed her my arm, and she starts crying, and she goes, That's not just my daughter's name. That's her handwriting." She was, I didn't believe that was actually, but I recognized the writing, and she was crying. And she goes, I always want to be able to thank you, and I don't get to meet the parents too often. We do what we do, and you move on, and you hope that it helps helping somebody. But now we've meet up with so many of these young people that we met years ago, and we get to follow up with them, and it's just amazing to hear the stories, because I truly think we're losing some of the most gifted people. Like, I was just in a mall, and this girl comes up, and she's crying, and she's like, "Rob," she's like, "your music means so much to me because I have depression, I have suicidal thoughts." And I was like, "Oh, you're like me." And she's like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "You hurt deeply, but you love deeply too, don't you?" And she's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "You hurt deeply, but you can see when others are hurting, can't you?" She's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Yeah, you have what I have, and it sucks sometimes, but you can help a lot of people with that. Don't shut that off." And I think, isn't it, we get diagnosed with depression, which is very real, but nobody gets diagnosed with empathy, right? But there's some beautiful things, like, and then I just looked at this girl. I'm like, "So do you sing? Do you dance? Do you paint? Are you a photographer, poetry?" And she's like, "Yeah, I'm a dancer. How'd you know?" I'm like, "You told me you have depression, suicidal thoughts." She goes, "What?" I, I'm convinced, after talking with 900,000 teenagers, there's a connection between the arts and mental illness. Um, Artists, I'm an artist, and I'd watch friends go through something tough. They could wipe it off, keep walking. And I couldn't. When I go through something tough, I hurt deeply, and I'm like, "Why am I cursed with all this extra emotion?" And I'm like, "Wait, maybe this isn't a curse. This is a gift." And I realized this extra emotion I had was to be channeled into something, like channel this into a song, channel it into a poem, channel it into photography, like, get it out. Don't keep it in here. Even if it's dark, get it out. And it saved my life and look how many artists that we've lost, right? That have taken their life. Kurt Cobain, Chris Cornell, Chester Bennington, like, it's Robin Williams, right? It, being an artist, that it can, it hits you in the feels. Like, my dad passed away this last year, and I watched a lot of people just like being able to get up at the funeral and just tell fun. And I was a mess. I could barely speak, and again, that used to bother me. Like, why does this hurt me so deeply? But I'm like, I'm an artist, I'm an artist. I better write a song about this and not keep it inside.
Thank you for sharing that. Honestly, Rob, I know personally three incredible individuals that at one point contemplated suicide, and there are some of the most brilliant human beings that I know, caring, just like you said, emotional, but I'm so grateful that they went past it. And for you to be sharing this, especially as a male, because we have
Mm.
not done a great job as a society worldwide to allow males, especially, to be able to express what's going on with them. So, from the suicide notes, how many do you think males versus females that might be turning in? And not that it has anything to do with being male or female, when you're having challenges, mental issues of growing up and dealing with things, it doesn't have to do anything with being male or female, but
No.
females are more expressive in some ways,
Yeah.
but
For
not
sure.
always.
Yeah. Well, me being 6'5" athlete, I wasn't supposed to talk about my emotions and let my friends and my teammates know I was struggling, and like, be a man, suck it up. That's why I love that I am 6'5" and I'm covered in tattoos, and I have a mohawk and a beard. And, I love showing young men that, guys, you can be edgy and rough on the outside and still be full of compassion and generosity and vulnerability on the inside. Like, without question, that's a big part of what we do. And when you talk about the relation, one thing a lot of people don't know is way more females attempt suicide, way more males kill themselves.
Mm.
So a female will have 2, 3 attempts. And because of aggressiveness, the stats show that often, they'll go to the extremes and, make sure they're not found. They'll be in a field somewhere or do something like that, make sure nobody's around. So it affects, people differently. And I saw it big time as well, that as an athlete, as a big guy, as a man, like you're just told to suck it up. And I'm like, nah, I love showing people that, I'm expressive. I cry at movies more than anybody I know. Like, and I embrace it, and I love to show that off, not just to reveal it, but it's like it's a big part of who I am.
That's beautiful. And sorry for your dad's loss. I don't care what anyone says. Losing someone that we care about always impacts us, and it's more than okay to express it.
Yeah.
Uh, what have we learned from those notes that can help us as we move forward with teenage suicide, with even parents that are dealing with it, or adults that are still dealing with a lot of it? What have we learned that we can begin to apply and make a difference in the way we treat each other?
Yeah, well, I think, I was talking with a mom just the other day, and her she was one of the ones that gave me her suicide note, and she now talks and meets with parents and stuff. And we're actually working on a program together where we're going to help educate, parents on how to deal with this stuff, and what to say and what not to say. She
Mm.
has this brilliant thing with just conversations with her daughter, and this is what the daughter was dealing with. This is how she responded, and therefore her daughter reacted this way. And so we're working on some resources like that. But for me, if I meet a parent, an aunt, an uncle, a grandparent, it's like, hey, my daughter's dealing with this. Like, hey, what do I say? Like, what do I say to make this better? I'm like, oh, those words don't exist. Nothing just makes it go away. But my first thing is like, avoid the cliches. Don't say everything happens for a reason. Don't say I know what you're going through if you don't. Like, everybody has struggles with their mental health, which means some days you feel 100% physically, some days you feel 100% mentally, other days you feel 80% physically, mentally. Not everyone knows what it's like to get down to 5 and 3%. So if you haven't been there, you don't have to say I know what you're going through. Because I don't know what you're going through, but I'll sit with you through this. Be willing to go. Some parents are still scared to let their son, daughter go to a counselor, a social worker, and because of the stigma, not just with the child, but with the family. Like, you wouldn't do that with cancer. You wouldn't do that with a broken arm. Get the help that you need. But if you're a parent, for example, and you know that your son or daughter is struggling, you are already way ahead, because you know, sometimes you can see the scars if somebody's been cutting. Sometimes you can't. They do it on their legs where where nobody can see it. Would you rather know that they're struggling or only find out when it's too late? So if you know they're going through something, you're already way ahead of the game. You're doing something right. So that's a big thing. And the massive part of it is, if you can look in the mirror and say, if your son, daughter reached out, would you say, and they said, Mom, Dad, I need help. Are you available? And if you can say yes to that, that's all you can do. I'm available, because you are not responsible. This mom that I was talking with, she said, one thing I learned is, my daughter, she struggled with her mental health. She's like, she was in a trench. And when you came to her school, you put a ladder down into that trench. And she saw the hope and she got on the ladder. And she goes, and originally I thought I would be able to help her up the ladder. And I can't. She goes, my job and my husband's job is to hold the ladder and try to keep it stable. And she's the one that's going to have to make those steps. And when she slides back down, you're there, you're keeping it stable, letting her know we're still here for you. We're in your corner. And when it comes to, if you're struggling yourself, like, I kept things pretty quiet and underground, what I've been doing for the last 12 years, because I never wanted any of the students to think that what I do is a publicity stunt. So I never really had a lot of cameras around. I didn't advertise what I was doing, but when COVID hit, I thought it's time to tell some of these stories. So we've actually, during COVID, we followed up with 10 of these kids to find out where they are now. And we shot a documentary, and it is all done. We are now negotiating to find out where that could go, which platform to release it on, which will be not just in Canada, but America and everywhere else as well. And I put together a team of social workers, counselors, and psychologists. And I said, could you take each episode of these kids and let's make a curriculum out of it? So we beta tested this in, you have states, we have provinces, but we did beta tested this in 4 provinces in Canada. And now it's available in Canada right now. But kids literally sit in school at the front of the class and they watch a 10-minute episode of my story. It's great production, and they watch a music video, and then they journal on their computers. What was Robb's struggle? What was his breakthrough? How did he get help? And how is he helping other people? And the next day they journal about watch another story of a kid. What was their struggle? And after a few episodes, like, what's your struggle? Where could you find help? And where could you get a breakthrough? And how could you help other people? And that's one thing we did. And there's tons of those stories, but you'll be able to see a lot of those stories in the documentary that hopefully will be out everywhere soon.
Yes. Robb, as you're going through this work, you're a musician, and you're not a counselor,
Mm-mm.
you're not a psychiatrist, yet you have this wisdom that you've gained from going through these pieces. How do you allow others to step in and become better within themselves as they're going through their own processes? You do it on
Yeah,
stage. Is there other ways?
yeah. Well, through our social media, but again, with everything we're doing, with the curriculum, the documentary is, uh, if people are looking for an example of the perfect human being to look up to, I'm not that person. I get up on stage and I talk about, in the documentary, I talk about the mistakes I've made, and I just show people it's okay to be vulnerable and start over when you make a mistake. And unfortunately, in our world, we don't like giving people second chances, and people love to get canceled for big things and small things. And I'm no perfect example of anything. I'm just vulnerable, and I got through it without getting help, but that was very difficult. And for me, I'm like, you know what? I get on stage and let them know it's okay to talk to your school counselor. It's okay to go see a psychologist. It's okay to see a counselor. It's okay to open up. And that's the vulnerability. And then we have partners with CMHA, which is a Canadian Mental Health Association in Canada. We have partnership with Kids Help Phone, which is in Canada. I don't know if it's in the States as well, but where kids can just text Nash and it goes straight to Kids Help Phone when they're struggling. I just let them know, like after every concert, every student gets like a poster book and with all the lyrics to our songs, and then there's the text line and yeah, you nailed it perfectly. I always say it that I'm not a counselor, I'm not a psychologist, but and then a little while ago, I'm speaking at the Canadian Psychiatric Association of Canada's national conference, and all these psychiatrists are like, who is this tattooed guy on stage talking to us? But afterwards they're going, where did you learn this stuff? And it's like, sometimes it comes from here and sometimes it comes from here, but if we work together as a team, there's a lot of people involved in this war, in this fight. And that's what I wrote my new album about. Like, I toured so much that I rarely had time to write new music. But when COVID hit, I was like, I didn't know how much I had, how many stories and songs I had locked inside of me. So did a new album, and there's 18 songs, and the album's called This Is War. And it talks about the fact that we are at war with an invisible enemy called mental illness. And it's a war that we're losing. And in the title track, This Is War, I kind of challenge the fact that in the Western world, especially North America, we think we've created paradise. But like, is this the promised land? Like, this is where there's the most suicides and the most overdoses. Is this, so it says, bodies have filled the streets, blood is beneath my feet. This is war. This is freedom. you know And it just kind of challenges that whole thing and the whole album. There's moments where I'm talking about being on the front lines. There's other moments we're talking about being in triage. There's moments you're in victory mode, but there's 18 songs on it that from everything like finding an ally and all of those things. And yeah, we're really pumped about it. And that's the album cover right there. Just being at war with something, something you don't even recognize is in the room, those voices in your head that are telling you the world. If you've never been there before, some people say that suicide is selfish because you take your pain and you give it to the people around you. And without question, that happens. But if you've never been there before, you don't realize that the voice in your head, the lie in your head, is that the world would be better without you. Mm. And the most selfless thing you could do is leave. You are a burden to your parents. You're a burden to your friends, your family. Why don't you just leave? And that's the lie that we are just trying to extinguish. And this girl at the mall, she's like, I'm like, are you glad I'm still here? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, and somebody's going to say the same thing to you one day. You got to keep going because somebody needs your story. One day you will meet somebody, you'll see them, and you'll be like, oh, that's me. And you get to be that kid's hero. You got to keep going, channel this, get it out into something, don't stop now. If you're going through hell, why would you stop there? Get to the other side, because on the other side, somebody is waiting for you, and don't do it alone. Get it out,
What other phrases can you think of that some of these kids are thinking that they think that's the only way out?
Yeah, well, when it gets back to the cliches, none of the suicide notes say, oh, I wish my house was bigger or my car was shinier. It's just we're looking for something else, and we've really lost our priorities in the West, really have, and we're just obsessed with the worst four-letter word on earth, and that is more. I want more of whatever more is, my family, my dad's family, most of them still live in Belize, and I went there once, and I was there for 3 weeks, and I only told one cousin I was coming, and I didn't want to make a big deal of it, and it was a big party the first night, and then we go to the ocean the next day, and then we go swimming in the caves, and then we go, and after a few days, I'm like, guys, like, I'm here for 3 weeks, like, we don't have to party every day. And like, I'm like, well, why wouldn't we? I'm like, don't you have jobs? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, what'd you tell your bosses? That our family's here? Like, and they were okay with that. They're like, yeah, of course. And then no joke, my cousin came up from Belize and surprised me, and he goes, I'm here. I'm like, oh, cool. I can meet you for coffee next Thursday at 8:15. He's like, no, I'm here. I want to hang out. I'm like, oh, well, and the more you try to describe our society, it's brutal. I know I've totally, you said more phrases that are in suicide notes, but
No, that's good.
Most of them start with mom, dad, if you're reading this. And that's actually the title of our documentary is going to be, if you're reading this. And, every time I get those notes and, I just realize, I'm reading it instead of a mom or dad, and it keeps you going. And, again, I just try to, as I look through what people are going through, one of the most frequent tattoos that people quote is from my show, where I just say, like, another cliche is people like will tell you, the pain will go away. Like, when I lost my dad, I couldn't believe how many people were saying, oh, the pain will go away. Don't worry. I was like, no, it won't. And it shouldn't, because I'm never going to forget my dad. And I just have this quote in the show. I say, if pain doesn't go away, neither does the strength. If you wake up in the morning looking for pain, you will find it. But if you get up in the morning looking for strength and hope and help, you can find that too. And sometimes that's a daily decision. And I have been saying that to people all the time. When will this pain go away? My parents got divorced. My mom died. Or, I'll be like, oh, that pain's not going away. What? Like, no, would you want it to? Like, that means you forgot about your mom. It's like, well, no, I guess you're right. It's like, yeah, Pain doesn't go away, but neither does the strength. Get up and look for strength whenever you can, when you need it, and and then when my dad passed, oh, hey, bling bling, your phone's lighting up, don't worry, the pain will go away. And I got so upset. I'd finished the album already, 17 songs, and I called my producer, I'm doing another song. And I called it Favorite Cliche, and it says, we buried my dad, and then I heard you say, there's no need to worry, the pain goes away. But could you please spare me your favorite cliche? Because I'm still hurting on day 88, But by the end of the song, I say, I've got my own new favorite cliche, and that is that I can find peace in the midst of the pain. I think, we talk about the pursuit of happiness so much, and I'm not a big fan of happiness, happiness, if good things around us are happening, we call that happiness. But if bad things are around us, it's like allowing the circumstances around you to dictate how you feel. And that's so backwards, um, you know, if you if you look for peace and joy that comes from within rather than looking for it to come from the external places around you, then you've got a chance. But if you're just looking for happiness, that's letting other people decide what's happening and dictating your mood. That's a dangerous game to play.
You have such incredible wisdom. Thank you for sharing all of this. And you touched on something that is so vital and so crucial in today's society, our Western world. And I work with younger generation living a life that matters, attitude of altitude, and concentrating on the things that make a difference instead of chasing shiny objects, wealth, this or that, but putting the things that are really going to matter. I can see as a young person, because the examples are in front of them, what it is in social media currently and what our current society is, they think that that's where life lies. But you touched on it so greatly: family, being able to express yourself, being able to connect with others. What other advice would you give a young individual that is beginning to launch themselves? They're off to school, off to work, off to start their life. What would you offer them as advice now?
Honestly, way too many people say, I want to do what you do when I grow up. Or I want to do what you do when I grow up. I'm like, why would you wait till you grow up? And they're like, what do you mean? I wake up every day and I say, I'm available. I'm going to keep my eyes open. And if there's something that needs to be done and somebody more talented isn't available, I'll do it. I'll try, and if you wake up looking to be available, it's amazing what you start to see, we put such a focus on ourselves. Way too much of the world is so focused, so self-absorbed in the West, especially, where it's like you only take care of yourself. You don't look after anybody else. That's not a good balance. Now, on the other hand, for every mile of road, there's 2 miles of ditch. Some people will go into the other ditch and only take care of other people and not take care of themselves. That's also not healthy. But I don't do a lot of one-on-one stuff because I'm not a counselor. But one family friend, I think it was their nephew. He had his second or third suicide attempt, and they'd asked him if I meet him when he got out of the hospital. So we went for lunch, and we're in a busy area outdoor, we're eating, and then he goes, my parents, it's not up to them if I want to cut myself. These are my arms. If I want to get high, it's my life. I want to kill myself, it's my life. And I'm like, yeah, but I think there's something special about you. And he's like, what do you mean? And I was like, are you ever stopped at a red light and you're looking around and you don't know why, but somebody stands out to you and you can't figure out why? Like maybe they're just really good looking, but maybe it's something else, And he goes, yeah, that happens all the time. I'm like, let's go try something. Let's go for a walk. So we went for a walk, super busy area. He's like, what are we doing? I'm like, point at the first person that stands out to you in the crowd. And he's like, what? I'm like, does anyone stand out to you? Busy streets, anyone stand out to you? He goes, well, it is kind of weird you say that, because see that woman way over there across the street? I'm like, yeah. He goes, as soon as we walked out here, I noticed her. I'm like, the woman with the walker? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, okay, come with me. He goes, what? So I started walking across the street and he's like, what are we doing? I'm like, let's go find out why she stood out to you. So we walked up and I said, hey, ma'am, how are you? She goes, I'm okay. I'm like, is there anything we could do for you right now? And she starts crying. And she goes, my shoelaces are untied. And she goes, I've been standing here for a half hour because I'm scared to take another step because I'm afraid I could fall and break my other hip. I just prayed that somebody would come and tie my shoes. Would you boys tie my shoes for me? I was like, yeah. So I tied one, he tried the other, and we got up and she was so grateful. It was like we just bought her a car. And we walked away and he was like, that was awesome. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, you saw it. He goes, yeah. I'm like, let me ask you something. Do you want to get high right now? He's like, no. I'm like, do you want to hurt yourself? He's like, no. I'm like, do you want to kill yourself? He's like, no. I'm like, why? Who are you focused on? He's like, her. I'm like, yeah. You know, when you're hurting yourself and you're having suicidal thoughts, you're usually alone, aren't you? He's like, yeah. I'm like, when you get those feelings, those dark thoughts, maybe there's something you're supposed to be doing for somebody in that moment. And you've got some distraction in your head trying to get you to focus on yourself and not because there's something prompting out there for you to go do something, you know? And then his parents called me a few weeks later, like, what the hell did you say to our kid? I'm like, well, why? Because before he leaves for school in the morning, he'll just go mow the neighbor's lawn. I'm like, oh, he's going to do something for somebody else, you know, like get out. Like we've seen so many cool things. Like we saw in the paper, one city, somebody, we left the school and the school's like, a bunch of the students got together and they asked the staff if they could use a school bus every lunch hour for a month. And they're like, for what? And they went door to door during their lunch hours and they knocked on people's doors and they asked if anybody had used winter clothing that they don't use anymore. And so people are like, oh yeah, here, it's Canada. We're a little colder than you in California, and they filled this entire school bus with winter clothing, and then they went and brought it all to all the homeless people. And they wanted to do something significant. They wanted to do something for the community around them because, like I said, if you're available, if you wake up and say, I'm available, it's amazing what you start to see and what you can do with one phone call, one text, you know. If you do it right now, you know, it's like, I should reach out to somebody, wonder what I could do right now. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. There's needs everywhere. One story that absolutely rocked me is um, I don't know if he's a detective, but he studies a lot of the cases at the Golden Gate Bridge. You know, if people jump, his job was to, you know, identify the person, go to their home, and try to find out if it was truly a suicide or was there foul play or something. And he said he became so callous. You know, he's like, okay, he goes to this one home and he opens and okay, and there's the note on the dining room table, just like always. And he said he was so calloused by it, but this one rocked him. He opened it and he read the letter and it said, I'm going to the Golden Gate Bridge to kill myself. If anyone says hello to me on the way, I will come home and I will rip up this note. Yeah. So I'm in the hospital all the time with all my surgeries and all that. And when I go to the hospital, nobody at the hospital is having a good day. So it's like, man, when you go in there, you're like, oh man, I'm going to be in a room full of people not doing well. You know, nobody's wanting to be in a hospital. You know, even the nurses and doctors, they're dealing with people that are going through something tough every day. Man, when you go in with that lens and you walk into the room, it's like it just changes the dynamic, and suddenly you're not so concerned about your own stuff. You know,
I have a phrase that I say to a lot of people that we're all connected, whether you realize it or not. Everything we do impacts everyone else. So if we begin living that way
yeah.
and seeing that every person is a part of us and we're a part of them, we'll begin to change the way we treat each other and the way we see each other. Is there anything, Rob, if I gave you right now, I gave you this magic wand, I said, Rob, you can make anything that you want from what you're learning, from what you deal with. What would you create?
If I could create anything from what we are doing right now,
Yes. Give you a magic wand and it's going to happen.
wow, look at you. Um, Honestly, I think I would say that I would give people a massive filter.
Mm.
Um, you walk down the street, and me being a musician, maybe it stands out a little more to me, but almost every, especially young person, has earphones in their ears. They're listening to something. And music, for example, can calm you down if you want to go to bed. It can it can help you hurt if you're looking for it. It can cause you pain. It can get you stirred up before a football game. It communicates with your spirit, but there's a filter of where you have to realize, not everything that comes in your ear should get to your heart, and man, I wish people knew that what they look at on their phones, what they watch on the TV, what they're listening to in music, it is like it changes your heart rate. Like it actually stirs you. And I think music is written in a spirit. And it's communicating with your spirit, and that's why you feel it, and it does something to you. And I wish people just knew um, that they just balanced what they were allowing to go into here and how much they guard their heart and protect what's actually going to take root. And I wish that artists all knew the impact they have or could have on the world around them. And for me, honestly, I don't think I'm the next Bono. I'm not some big deal coming, but I think somebody I meet, maybe one or a few of these kids will be. And if I get to be a small part of their story, um, that stirs me. That helps me to keep going. So yeah, I think people just really watch what they feed themselves, across the board. So I don't know, might be not what you were expecting to hear for an answer, but that's a big one for me.
That's a great one. Is there anything that you'd like to share that I might not have asked so far?
No, honestly, Rima, for one, I do this a number of times a day, and often, I can see the person is just waiting for me to finish the answer so they can ask the next question. And I appreciate what you're doing here. You're doing this with your heart, I can tell. You have the same desire to help other people, and that's a beautiful thing. And it doesn't matter if it's a million people listening or 10 people. It's just important for all of us to listen to those promptings. And I think you're doing that. That's amazing. And, and just to share your story the way you are and allowing others to share their stories like you've allowed me to today. If anybody wants to see the videos, you can go to just search up Robb Nash. I spell Rob with two B's, but Robb Nash. You go to the website robbnash.ca or .com, Rob with two B's. But yeah, and I just can't wait for people to see some of these stories, because for me, it's not so much about me, but some of these people we've met. I've always said I'm not trying to change anyone's life or save anyone's life. I don't think conviction comes from me. I think it comes from within. I'm trying to keep people long enough to hear those convictions. Um, yeah, I think helping people save themselves, and look and realize they have value, and the world is better with you in it, you know, and that's what we need to share with everybody we meet every day.
Agree 1000%. And I am going to highly recommend your music. It is not the music I would have listened to had I not seen your YouTube and gotten to see your heart and who you are. I would probably not have ever listened to the music, but I listened to most of the songs on your current album, a lot of your old music. Great details, especially for the younger generation that is going through something to understand, because you do understand them. So
Mhm.
thank you for sharing this music. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Yeah, there's some loud songs, but we got some softer ones too. Like I said, they're all written with a different spirit and energy. So
Rob, thank you so much.
thank you.
And to our audience, guys, remember our attitude always determines our altitude in life, and the way we treat each other is the only thing that makes a difference to our continuing humanity to get better. It's not technology, it's not advancement in things, it's advancement in who we are. and join us for the next episode. And thank you for being here.